All right, sit back, relax, grab a snack. The 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast is about to begin. Hello, welcome to the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki G. I'm here to inform, entertain, delight, and titillate you. Yeah, I said it. About everything off-road for the next 10 minutes or so. Why 10 minutes? Because I hear the ice cream truck a-coming. All right, welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning in. I want to remind everybody you can follow the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. But not TikTok and any of those other bastard social media. There's a ton of social media. And I got to be honest with you, you really can't follow the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast on any social media. I am so slack at posting, but we're on there. And while we're thinking about it, I'm in the market for a social media assistant campaigner. Think about outsourcing. Here's people in China. Alright, tonight I want to talk about airing down. That's a great idea. I'm going to hijack another podcast. If you're not familiar with the Jeep podcast, so listen to it. It's one of my favorite podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I guess I listen to a bunch of different down this thing. Off-road podcast. It's the Jeep Talk Show. It's the number one Jeep podcast. And your fake smiles is the only light that I get. A lot of off-road. If you're into off-road, check out the Jeep Talk Show. You can hear me. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about, well, we are here to talk about me. Before I got derailed, I was going to hijack the Jeep Talk Show
sliders,
podcast.
that's what they're there
They have
for.
a Zoom discussion while they're recording the podcast. And it's open to anybody. You just sign up for their email. They send you one email a week, and it's the link to the Zoom conference call. And you can talk to other listeners while they're recording the show. And so I was going to get on there and they pick everybody's brain about airing down, which I think I still might. And if I get to it in time before this airs, there'll probably be a cut to where I talk to people about it. But anyhow, I was just going to pick people's brains and just gather research for this podcast by using another podcast. Is that illegal? Before we get to that, I want to go over some statistics I just found out about the show. The show is hosted by Anchor. They have a pretty detailed website where they give you all kinds of information about your podcast. 93% of the listeners, and it's almost embarrassing the amount of downloads I have. It's in the triple digits, so I'm surprised about that. But anyhow, 93% of the people who downloaded this podcast live in the USA. 1% is from Germany. 1% is from Canada, which kind of disappointed in you guys up there in Junior America. I've got several internet friends in Canada, and I think altogether you guys probably would make 2%. Well, anyhow, 1% in Canada. 1% of my listeners are in Puerto Rico, and here's where it starts to get a little strange. Less than 1% is in Italy. Another less than 1% of my listeners are in Switzerland, which I don't even think I speak Swiss, although I do love their cocoa. Another less than 1% is in South Africa, which I don't get why they call it South Africa. Why can't they just call it Africa? That's like calling Florida South America, which it kind of is. Less than 1% of my listeners are in Australia. Another less than 1%, and we don't know how much less than 1% it is from France. Another less than 1% is in Taiwan. One more less than 1% is in the Philippines. And another less than 1% is from Myanmar. It's Myanmar. I have no idea where that is. Either way, I appreciate all of you listening to this, and I hope it's in a language you can understand, because I'm shocked that 93% of the people in the USA listening to this can understand me because I'm not speaking very good English. It's more my Ned Recklish. 54% of you download this podcast through Apple Podcasts, 9% on Spotify, 8% on Google, which I'm surprised that's not higher since I know so many people that use Android devices. Almost nobody likes Apple. And those of us that do use Apple, like I'm using Apple, we hate it. We're just, it's a tool of the devil and we're stuck and bound to it by a blood oath. 6% listen to this podcast through Castbox. Never heard of that. 20% listen to this podcast through Other. I have no idea what Other is, but it's 23%. And that's not including the amount of people who listen to podcasts through YouTube, which I believe is the most popular way, or at least that's where I get the most interaction with you people is through YouTube. Oddly enough, 100% of the downloads are male, which is kind of shocking because my wife listens to the podcast. So you figure that would be like 99.9%, although I haven't really seen her naked in the light. 60% of you are 35 to 44 age group. 10% is to 45 to 59. 15% is 23 to 27. And 10% is the 28 to 34 age group. I just thought that was some interesting facts, and I want to say thank you, everybody. I appreciate every one of you guys listening. All right, so getting back to the podcast, airing down. Why do we do it? It's a given that we air down to increase the width of our tire to gain traction. Anybody who grew up in the snow belt will know that in the wintertime, when you're getting stuck in the snow, you let some air out of your tire. And you get a little bit more bite to it, a little bit more traction. So everybody I know airs down. There's been a few times when I didn't expect to get into some heavy off-road, so I didn't air down, didn't disconnect my sway bar, and then it ended up biting me in the butt. So now every time I disconnect the sway bar and I air down, because it is a pain in the ass when you're on the trail and you get to an obstacle that requires it, and then you got to get out and air down, and then you look like a goofball. So I air down before. No matter what the trail conditions are, I air down. What do you air down to? I've seen some people air down to 10, 12 pounds, even less. People that air down really low are using beadlocks, which I haven't really confirmed whether beadlocks are illegal in North Carolina or not. They are illegal in some states, but I've heard they're illegal in North Carolina, but I can't get confirmation on that. So before you go out and get beadlocks, check with your local laws somehow. I don't know how. I can call the DMV, and they tell me 3 or 4 different things every time. I call the state trooper, but they seem to be very interested in my whereabouts. But anyhow, I air down to 20 pounds. Regardless of trail conditions. I've got some 7-inch rims. They're 15 by 7-inch. And I'm rolling with some 31s by 10.5. And any lower than 20 pounds, I seem to pop a bead. So I air down to 20. And if I can't get over anything because I have too much air in my tire, then I just throw out the winch line or I throw out a tow strap and I get up and over it. I have no idea if 33s or 35s would allow me to air down. I know trying to get those tires to fit on my rim are a stretch and a half. So airing down. Do you have to do it? Absolutely not. You don't have to do it. You can just roll however you want to. Ride comfort? You should air down. Traction, performance, you should air down. But if you don't feel like doing it or you don't have a way to air back up, then definitely don't air down. So now we talked about airing down. Let's talk about airing back up. The best air pump to use is the air pump you have. Anything is better than nothing. I use an air compressor out of an old Kia or a Hyundai or one of these new Korean cars. They don't come with a spare tire. They just have a plug kit and an air compressor. And it's a little funky looking plastic air compressor, but I gotta tell you, I came across one in a junkyard, bought it for $5. That is the best dang air compressor I've had. It performs very well. It's dirt cheap and it's compact. and it's just a good compressor. But everybody, I see people use the Viva Air, or however you pronounce that stuff. I won't say crap because everybody uses it, and they seem to be good. There's all kinds. You can easily spend a couple of $100 on an air compressor, or you can spend $50. Even the $10 one at Harbor Tool and Freight, which gets like super hot and takes like forever to air up a tire. That's better than no air. Now, I've even seen people use the CO2, which is awesome. A little bit pricey because, my $10 air compressor and I get all the free air I want, or my $5 air compressor and I get all the free air I want, versus what's it cost, about maybe $1.50, $2 to fill a tire with CO2. But it's instant and you can run air tools on a CO2 tank. But I want a CO2 tank, but I'm just not there yet. I don't think I need one. Definitely I don't bring air tools with me, so I don't need to run an air tool, but maybe someday. And, I wonder if you could put out a fire with CO2. I know some fire extinguishers have CO2 in them. That's a podcast for another day. All right, so let's recap it. Airing down, good, but not necessary. Airing up, mandatory. Don't have to air all the way up. You just get it to where it's roadable, and then you can hit the gas station. The way I feel about it is if you're going to air up, you might as well go all out. What's an extra, 15, 20 minutes? Have something to say? You can contact the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast through social media direct messaging. Say that 10 times fast. On the Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or leave a comment on our YouTube videos through 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast or Nick G, my favorite YouTube channel. You can write the podcast at 10minuteoffroad@gmail.com. That's 10minuteoffroad@gmail.com. All one word. No spaces or underscores, please. You can download the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast at Apple Podcast, Spotify, Overcast. Yeah, I've never heard of that either. Google Podcast, CastBox. That sounds like some fishing gear. Breaker, which that kind of reminds me of the old CB days. Pocket Cast, which kind of reminds me of the old Ronco Pocket Fisherman. Radio Public. And of course, Anchor, the wonderful host of this show. All right, until next time, this is Nicky G saying, wheel what you got and be happy. I did it. I did it all by myself.